"Shoot me," the Apache girl pleaded, but what the farmer did next shocked everyone. The air smelled of fresh earth and wild grass, and the quiet hum of nature made the farmer's daily routine feel peaceful. He was a man of simple habits, someone who had worked the land his entire life. Every morning he rose with the first light, tended his crops, checked his animals, and made sure everything was in order before the heat of the day settled in. It was a life that required patience, hard work, and an understanding of the rhythm of nature. For years, this routine had brought him comfort, a sense of stability, and pride in what he had built with his own hands. On this particular evening, he was walking along the far edge of his property. The fields were golden from the harvest, and the wind made the tall grass sway like waves in the ocean. He carried a small bag of tools over his shoulder, and his boots crunched softly on the dirt path. He was planning to check the old fence that separated his land from the open plains beyond. It had been damaged by the summer storms, and he wanted to make sure nothing could harm his crops or animals. As he moved through the grass, his mind wandered over ordinary thoughts: the price of supplies, whether the weather would turn, and what he would eat for dinner tonight. Then, out of the corner of his eye, he noticed movement. At first, he thought it might be a deer or some other wild animal, but as he looked more carefully, he realized it was something else. A figure was crouched near the edge of his property line, half hidden by the tall grass. It was a young girl, no older than 15 or 16, with dark hair tangled around her shoulders. Her clothes were worn and dusty, and she looked small and fragile against the vast landscape. What startled him most, however, were her eyes. They were wide, alert, and filled with a mix of fear and exhaustion that seemed almost impossible for someone her age to carry. The farmer paused, unsure of what to do. He had encountered travelers and strangers before, but never someone in such an obviously desperate state. The girl did not speak at first. She simply sat there, staring at him with an intensity that made him stop in his tracks. His first instinct was caution. He knew the world could be unpredictable, and sometimes people were driven by desperation to make dangerous choices. But alongside his caution was a stronger, softer instinct. He could see that she needed help, and he felt a deep, immediate pull to offer it. Slowly, he lowered himself to the ground, keeping his movements gentle and non-threatening. He didn't want to scare her. "Are you okay?" he asked, his voice calm and steady. The words seemed to hang in the air for a moment, barely disturbing the quiet of the evening. The girl's eyes flicked toward him and then back to the ground. She didn't answer. Instead, she moved slightly, shifting her weight as if trying to prepare herself for something he could not yet understand. Finally, she spoke, and her words sent a chill through the farmer. "Shoot me," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. It was not a demand full of anger or challenge. It was a plea trembling and broken. The farmer's heart sank. He had heard of despair, of people feeling hopeless, but to hear it so openly, so honestly from someone so young was something entirely different. His mind raced. Why would she say this? What had she been through that made her believe the only option left was for someone to hurt her? He took a cautious step closer, but remained a safe distance away. He wanted to show he meant no harm. "I won't hurt you," he said, his voice soft, almost a whisper now so she could feel the truth in it. "I promise. You don't have to be afraid." The girl's eyes filled with tears, but she did not look away. She was shaking slightly, and the wind caught strands of her hair, blowing them across her face. She seemed trapped in a moment of fear so deep that even the approaching dusk could not soften it. Her plea had been instinctive, born from months, or perhaps years, of hardship, fear, and misunderstanding. But the farmer could see the humanity behind her pain. He realized she wasn't asking for violence. She was asking for release from the weight she had been carrying for so long. He knelt slowly, lowering himself to be closer to her level, hoping to bridge the invisible distance that fear had created between them. "You don't have to do anything like that," he said. "You're not alone right now, I can help you." His words were deliberate, gentle, and honest. For the first time, the girl's expression softened just slightly, though the tension remained. He reached into his bag and pulled out a small cloth to wipe the dust from his hands. Then he noticed a small cut on her arm, partially hidden by her sleeve. It was not life-threatening, but it had clearly been unattended for some time. The sight of it brought a surge of protective instinct to the farmer. He had always believed that kindness, even in small doses, could make a world of difference, and he felt certain that this girl needed that kindness more than anything else at that moment. "Let me help you," he said again, extending his hand slowly. "I have water and I can clean that cut. You don't have to be scared." The girl hesitated. She looked at his hand and then at his face, searching for any sign of danger. For a long moment, neither of them moved. Then slowly she allowed herself to take his hand. It was a small gesture, almost imperceptible, but it was a signal that she was willing to trust him, just a little. As they walked toward his farmhouse, the sun dipped lower, casting long shadows across the fields. The girl's steps were unsteady, but she moved with a cautious determination. The farmer said very little, letting her set the pace. He was careful not to rush her, not to ask too many questions too soon. He understood that healing and trust could not be forced. It had to come naturally in its own time. By the time they reached the farmhouse, the sky had turned a deep orange, then a muted purple, and the first stars were beginning to twinkle in the fading light. The girl paused at the door, taking a deep breath. She looked around at the simple home, the tidy yard, and the small garden filled with vegetables and flowers. It was not the grandest place, but it was warm, safe, and filled with evidence of care. Inside, the farmer offered her a seat and handed her a cup of water. She drank slowly, her hands trembling. He did not pressure her to speak. He understood that silence was sometimes as important as words, and in that quiet moment, something shifted. The girl realized that she was not alone, that there was someone willing to see her not as a problem or a burden, but as a human being deserving of care. As the evening grew darker, the farmer prepared a small meal, simple but nourishing. The girl watched him, still wary, still uncertain, but slowly, almost imperceptibly, a sense of relief began to take hold. For the first time in a long time, she felt a glimmer of hope. The fear that had driven her to plead for harm was still there, lingering in the corners of her mind, but it was being replaced by something else. The realization that kindness could exist in the world, even when it seemed impossible. The farmer, too, felt a change. He had seen many things in his life, but rarely had he encountered someone so broken yet so courageous. He knew that the night ahead would be long, filled with questions and difficult conversations. But he also knew that this encounter, which had begun with fear and despair, was the start of something profoundly important for both of them. By the time the girl finally rested in a small bed the farmer had prepared for her, the night was fully upon them. The stars shone brightly in the clear sky, and the world outside seemed calm, unaware of the small miracle that had taken place in the farmhouse. She closed her eyes, not fully trusting the safety she felt, but allowing herself, for the first time in a long while, to hope that maybe, just maybe, things could get better. And the farmer, sitting quietly nearby, thought about how fragile life could be, and yet how powerful a single act of kindness could become. He knew the journey ahead would not be easy, but he also knew that they had both taken the first step toward healing, a step that would change everything. The next morning, the sun rose slowly over the horizon, spilling golden light across the fields. Birds sang softly in the trees, and a gentle breeze carried the scent of fresh earth and flowers. Inside the small farmhouse, the girl stirred awake. For the first time in many days, she had slept through the night without waking in terror. She blinked a few times, taking in the familiar surroundings. The wooden walls, the warm light filtering through the windows, and the small table where a simple breakfast had been set. The farmer was already moving about the kitchen, quietly preparing the meal, careful not to make sudden movements that might scare her. The girl sat on the edge of the bed for a moment, her thoughts heavy. She wanted to leave, to disappear before anyone could reach her or find her again. Years of running, hiding, and being afraid had taught her that safety was temporary, that people could not be trusted. But something about the farmer made her hesitate. His calm presence, the gentle way he had spoken to her, and the kindness he had shown, these were foreign to her experiences, yet comforting in a strange, quiet way. Finally, she got up and walked slowly toward the kitchen. She did not speak at first, her eyes avoiding the farmer's. He noticed the hesitation and offered a gentle smile. "Good morning," he said softly. "I hope you slept well." The girl nodded, her voice caught somewhere between fear and gratitude. I slept," she said quietly. The farmer nodded, understanding that trust could not be forced. "I've made some breakfast," he said. "You don't have to eat if you don't want to, but it's better to have some food in your stomach." He placed a small plate of warm bread, a little butter, and a few slices of fruit in front of her. The girl looked at it cautiously, as if she expected it to disappear or vanish. Slowly, she picked up a piece of bread and took a small bite. It tasted unfamiliar yet comforting. She had not eaten properly in days, and the warmth of the food gave her body a sense of relief she had almost forgotten. As she ate, the farmer spoke softly, careful not to ask too many questions too soon. "You don't have to tell me everything right now," he said. "I just want you to know that you're safe here. No one will hurt you." The girl paused, her eyes downcast, and for a long moment she did not respond. Then, in a voice barely audible, she began to share pieces of her story. She told him of the journey she had taken to escape danger, moving from village to village, hiding in forests and fields. She spoke of the nights spent under the stars, shivering in the cold, and the days when she had no food or water. Her voice trembled as she spoke, but there was a quiet strength in the words she chose. Each sentence revealed a little more of the fear she carried, the loneliness that had become her companion, and the mistrust she had learned to rely on as a shield. The farmer listened carefully, nodding occasionally, never interrupting. He did not offer judgment or advice. He simply let her speak, giving her the space to express what she had been holding inside for so long. He knew that sharing one's story could be painful, but it was also the first step toward healing. With each word, the girl seemed to release a small part of her fear, a small part of the burden she had carried for so long. After a while, she paused, tears welling in her eyes. She had expected anger, disappointment, or rejection, but the farmer's calm presence and gentle listening reassured her that she would not face these emotions here. Why are you helping me?" she asked finally, her voice cracking. "I don't deserve it. I am nothing." The farmer shook his head slowly. "Everyone deserves help," he said. "No one is nothing. You are human and you have value. That is enough." His words were simple, but they carried a weight that the girl had rarely felt. She had grown up hearing that she was in the way, that her life was less important than others, and to hear someone speak differently was both confusing and comforting. She did not answer immediately. Instead, she looked down at the table, tracing the pattern of the wood with her fingers. For the first time in a long while, she allowed herself to feel something she had almost forgotten: hope. It was small at first, fragile and uncertain, but it began to grow as she realized that the farmer's kindness was real, that she had a place to rest, and that her life was not meaningless. The morning passed quietly. The farmer showed her around the small house, pointing out the simple comforts: a warm blanket, clean water, and a garden where vegetables grew. He spoke of the work he did each day, the animals he cared for, and the importance of tending the land. He did not pressure her to do anything she was not ready for. Instead, he allowed her to observe, to learn slowly, and to feel safe in the presence of someone who cared. As they worked together, small moments of connection began to form. The girl helped with simple tasks, watering the plants, feeding the animals, and sweeping the floors. She moved carefully, unsure at first, but gradually she began to gain confidence. Each task completed brought a small sense of accomplishment, something she had not experienced in a long time. The farmer praised her gently, not extravagantly, but in a way that made her feel noticed and valued. During the day, the girl shared more of her story. She told him about her family, the people she had loved and lost, and the moments that had shaped her into someone wary and cautious. She spoke of fear, but also of resilience, the ability to keep moving forward even when everything seemed against her. The farmer listened, sometimes offering a word of encouragement, sometimes simply remaining silent so that her voice could carry its own weight. By the afternoon, the girl felt a strange mixture of emotions. She was exhausted from the journey, from the memories, and from the act of speaking about her pain. But she also felt a spark of something new: trust. It was small, fragile, and easily shattered, but it existed. She had begun to understand that the farmer was not like others she had met. He did not judge, he did not push, and he did not expect anything from her except her willingness to accept help. As the day drew to a close, the farmer prepared a simple meal. They ate together in silence for a while, the comfort of the food and the shared space creating a sense of normalcy that the girl had not known for years. Afterward, they sat near the window, watching the sun dip below the horizon. The sky turned shades of purple, pink, and gold, and the first stars began to appear. The girl felt a quiet peace she had not experienced in a long time. Before she went asleep that night, she whispered a small thank you to the farmer. It was not loud, not dramatic, but it carried the weight of gratitude and the beginning of trust. The farmer smiled gently and nodded, understanding the significance of her words. He knew that this was only the beginning of a long journey, a journey that would involve patience, care, and the slow rebuilding of trust. But he also knew that each small step mattered. That night, as the girl lay under a warm blanket, she thought about the day she had experienced. She had expected danger, rejection, and cruelty, but instead she had found kindness, safety, and understanding. It was a revelation, one that filled her with hope and curiosity about the future. She realized that perhaps not everyone was against her, and that there could be people who would help her, even when the world seemed harsh and unforgiving. And for the farmer, the day had been a reminder of the power of human connection. He had seen fear, pain, and despair, but he had also witnessed courage, resilience, and the potential for healing. The simple act of listening, offering food, and creating a safe space had made a profound difference. He knew that the girl's journey was far from over, but he also knew that she had taken her first steps toward a future that was no longer defined by fear. In the quiet of the night, both of them slept with a sense of cautious hope. One had found a purpose in helping another, and the other had begun to believe that safety, care, and trust were possible. The world outside remained uncertain, but inside the farmhouse, a small light of hope burned brightly, promising that tomorrow could be different, and perhaps better. The morning sun rose slowly, casting long golden rays across the farmhouse and fields. Birds chirped cheerfully, as if celebrating the new day, while the wind rustled gently through the trees. Inside the house, the young girl was already awake, sitting quietly on the edge of the bed. She looked around, noticing the small comforts she had started to grow accustomed to: the neatly arranged blankets, the soft light streaming through the window, and the gentle presence of the farmer who was already preparing breakfast. Today felt different, even to her cautious mind. Yesterday had been a day of first steps, eating without fear, speaking without hesitation, and realizing that kindness was possible. But today, she sensed a deeper change waiting for her. She could feel it in the quiet moments, in the way the sunlight touched the floorboards, and in the gentle rhythm of the farmer's movements. There was a kind of calm determination in the air, a sense that something important was about to happen, even if she did not yet know what it was. The farmer noticed her thoughtful expression and smiled softly. "Good morning," he said. "I've prepared some breakfast. I thought you might like something warm to start the day." He placed a plate of fresh bread, fruit, and a little porridge in front of her. The girl hesitated, looking at the food as if unsure whether it was safe to eat. She had grown so accustomed to scarcity and fear that the simple act of eating without worry felt strange. Slowly, she picked up a piece of bread and took a small bite. The warmth and taste made her feel surprisingly comforted. For a brief moment she allowed herself to feel normal, a sensation she had not known in a long time. As she ate, the farmer spoke in his calm, steady manner. "Yesterday, you shared a lot with me," he said. "I want you to know that I am here for you and I will not judge you for anything. You are safe here and nothing bad will happen." The girl's eyes met his for a moment, and she felt a small flicker of trust. She had spent so long hiding from the world, running from danger and expecting the worst from everyone she met. The farmer's words were different. They were not forced, nor did they carry expectations, only care. After breakfast, the farmer led her outside to the garden. The air was fresh and sweet, carrying the scent of flowers and damp earth. He handed her a small watering can and showed her how to care for the plants. "It is important to take care of things slowly," he explained. "Plants, animals, and even people, they all need patience and attention to grow." The girl listened carefully, noticing the gentleness in his voice. There was no rush, no pressure, only a quiet encouragement that made her feel more at ease. As she moved among the rows of vegetables, watering each plant with care, she began to notice how much effort the farmer had put into this land. Every plant was healthy, the garden was neat, and even the smallest details had been attended to with love. She realized that this man had spent years nurturing something, and that same patience could be applied to people too. Slowly, the thought took root in her mind. Perhaps she too could grow stronger with care, even after all she had endured. The morning passed quietly, filled with small tasks and gentle conversation. The girl shared more of her story, her voice trembling at times as she recounted moments of fear and hardship. She spoke of running through forests at night, hiding from people who wanted to harm her, and sleeping under the stars with no shelter or food. She described the loneliness she had felt and the constant worry that danger was just around the corner. The farmer listened patiently, never interrupting, never judging. Each word she spoke seemed to lift a small weight from her heart, as though releasing the tension she had carried for so long. At one point, she paused and asked softly, "Why are you helping me? You don't even know me. You could have ignored me or sent me away." The farmer looked at her with calm, steady eyes. "Because it is the right thing to do," he said simply. "Everyone deserves help, and no one should be left to suffer alone. You are not alone now, and you will not be." His words were not dramatic, but they carried a power that the girl had rarely experienced. She felt a strange warmth inside, a mixture of relief and curiosity, as if a small door had been opened in her heart. The day continued with small lessons and tasks. The farmer showed her how to feed the chickens and gather eggs, explaining the importance of caring for the animals with respect. She watched closely, learning how to handle them gently and confidently. At first she was nervous, afraid she might harm them accidentally. But with his patient guidance, she began to feel capable, and each success, no matter how small, gave her a sense of accomplishment she had almost forgotten. By midday, the girl had started to feel a sense of belonging she had never known before. She realized that the farmer's kindness was not just in words, but in actions, showing her that she could trust, that she could be safe, and that she could learn to care for herself again. The thought was both exhilarating and frightening. She had spent so long being afraid of people that accepting care felt like stepping into unknown territory. Yet, Something deep inside told her that this was the right path, that this was an opportunity to change her life. As the afternoon sun climbed higher, the farmer suggested they take a walk along the fields. The girl hesitated at first, unsure if it was safe. But the open space, the warmth of the sun, and the farmer's steady presence gave her confidence. As they walked, he spoke gently about the land, the seasons, and the importance of hard work and patience. She listened carefully, absorbing each word. For the first time, she felt connected not just to the land, but to another human being who truly cared for her well-being. During the walk, the girl noticed small signs of life and hope everywhere. A bird building its nest, flowers beginning to bloom, and the soft rustle of leaves in the wind. She began to realize that life continued even after hardship, that beauty could exist even in places where pain had once dominated. The farmer's calm presence reminded her that growth was possible, that trust could be rebuilt, and that fear did not have to control her forever. When they returned to the farmhouse, the farmer offered her a simple snack and water. She sat quietly, feeling a strange sense of peace. She wanted to speak, to ask questions, and to learn more about this man who had shown her such unexpected kindness. But words felt insufficient for now. Instead, she simply allowed herself to be present, to experience the safety, warmth, and care that had been missing from her life for so long. As evening approached, the farmer prepared a small meal. They ate together, and though they spoke little, the connection between them grew stronger. The girl began to understand that the farmer's actions were not random, not fleeting. They were steady, consistent, and dependable. This realization brought a sense of security that she had never felt before. For the first time, she imagined a future where she might not have to fear constantly, where she could learn, grow, and even enjoy moments of peace. After the meal, the farmer suggested they sit near the window and watch the stars appear. The girl hesitated at first, but then joined him. They watched as the sky turned deep purple, and stars began to twinkle like tiny candles in the distance. She felt a strange calm settle over her, as if the world outside had softened, becoming less threatening and more welcoming. The night air was cool, carrying the scent of the land, and for the first time in a long while, she felt safe enough to breathe deeply without fear. The farmer spoke softly, sharing simple stories about his life, his experiences with the land, and the lessons he had learned over the years. He did not preach or demand respect. He merely shared, letting the girl absorb what she could. She listened intently, learning not just about the man, but about the values of patience, kindness, and understanding. She began to see that trust could be built slowly, step by step, through consistent actions and genuine care. By the time the girl went to bed that night, she felt a sense of gratitude she had not known she could feel. She thought about the day, the lessons, the trust, the small victories, and the kindness that had been shown to her. She realized that the farmer's choice to help her had given her more than safety. It had given her hope, a sense of belonging, and a vision of a life that could be different from the fear-filled existence she had known. As she drifted off to sleep, she held on to a single thought, that even in the darkest moments, one act of kindness could create a spark of hope, and that hope could grow into something life-changing. She did not know what the future held, but for the first time, she believed that it might be brighter, kinder, and full of possibilities she had never dared to imagine. The days that followed brought subtle but profound changes in both the girl and the farmer. Morning after morning, the routine of life on the farm continued, yet it was far from ordinary for the young girl. Each day, she discovered something new about herself, about the land, and about the possibility of trust. She learned to tend to the plants, feed the animals, and care for the small household chores. Every task, no matter how simple, carried a sense of purpose and accomplishment that she had long forgotten. The farmer observed her progress with quiet pride. He did not offer excessive praise or rewards, knowing that true confidence comes from within. Instead, He guided her gently, letting her succeed through her own efforts. When she watered the plants, he pointed out the new shoots and explained how careful attention could make them grow stronger. When she fed the animals, he spoke of patience and respect, teaching her that every living being deserved care and understanding. With each lesson, the girl began to see herself differently, not as someone weak or unwanted, but as someone capable, deserving, and valued. Word of the girl's presence on the farm began to spread slowly through the nearby community. Some villagers were curious, others skeptical. They had heard whispers about the girl who had been wandering near the fields, a young Apache girl with a troubled past. Many had expected trouble, or at least some form of conflict, but when they saw her walking confidently around the farm, tending to animals and plants under the farmer's guidance, their assumptions began to falter. People are often quick to judge based on appearances, rumors, or fear, and yet seeing the gentle interactions between the farmer and the girl challenged these preconceived notions. Some villagers came by to observe quietly, unsure whether to approach. They noticed how the girl smiled tentatively when the farmer spoke to her, how she carried herself with a small but growing sense of self-respect, and how her eyes no longer darted around in constant fear. The farmer's patience and consistency were remarkable, and it began to influence those who watched. Slowly, even the most skeptical began to reconsider their judgments. They saw that kindness could produce change, that trust could grow where fear had once ruled, and that compassion had a power far greater than punishment or rejection. For the girl, these days were transformative. Each morning she awoke with a little more courage. Each task she completed reinforced her belief that she could survive, thrive, and belong. The farmer's calm presence became a source of comfort, a steady reminder that not everyone in the world sought to harm her. He did not demand explanations for her past or force her to reveal more than she was ready to share. Instead, he allowed her to take her time, understanding that healing required patience. One afternoon, as the sun shone brightly over the fields, the girl helped the farmer mend a section of the old fence. The work was physical and tiring, but it gave her a sense of purpose. With each nail she hammered and each plank she lifted, she realized that she was capable of more than she had believed. The farmer spoke encouragingly, guiding her hand when needed and praising her efforts gently. "See," he said, "you are stronger than you think. Every effort counts." She smiled, feeling a quiet pride welling up inside her. The satisfaction of completing something with her own hands was a feeling she had almost forgotten. Evenings were moments of reflection. After dinner, they would sit by the window and watch the sun sink below the hills, painting the sky in warm hues of pink and gold. These were moments of calm conversation, where the girl began to ask questions about the world, about life, and about the farmer's own experiences. He answered patiently, sharing stories from his past, lessons he had learned, and the simple joys he had found in life. Through these conversations, the girl realized that the world could contain kindness, wisdom, and joy, things she had never thought possible for herself. As weeks passed, the girl's confidence grew. She began to move through the farm with a sense of purpose and ease. She fed the animals without hesitation, tended the plants with care, and carried out her chores independently. The farmer noticed the changes and spoke little, understanding that the true reward lay in her growing self-reliance. The villagers, too, began to change. Some approached the farm with curiosity, asking questions and observing her work. Others came to offer small gifts, fresh vegetables, homemade bread, or tools to help with the farm. The girl was hesitant at first, unsure whether to accept their kindness, but she gradually learned to accept without fear, realizing that not all people intended harm. One day, a small group of children from the nearby village came to visit. They had heard about the girl and wanted to meet her. At first, she was nervous, unsure how to interact with others her age, but the farmer encouraged her gently. "You can be yourself," he said. "They just want to be friends." Slowly, she stepped forward and the children welcomed her warmly. They laughed together, shared small games, and exchanged stories. For the first time in a long while, the girl experienced the simple joy of friendship, a feeling that had been missing from her life for as long as she could remember. Through these interactions, the girl began to understand the power of community and connection. She saw that trust, once given, could grow into meaningful relationships. She also realized that her past experiences, while painful, had made her resilient and strong. The farmer's unwavering support had given her the courage to embrace life again, and the community's acceptance helped reinforce that courage. Slowly, she began to feel that she belonged, not just on the farm but in the larger world around her. However, change was not without its challenges. Occasionally, doubts and fears crept back into her mind. She would remember the moments of danger and rejection from her past, and the instinct to run or hide would return. During these times, the farmer's presence was especially important. He did not scold or dismiss her fears. Instead, he listened patiently, acknowledged her feelings, and reminded her gently that she was safe now. His guidance helped her navigate these moments, teaching her that strength was not the absence of fear, but the ability to act despite it. Over time, the girl began to contribute more actively to the life of the farm. She learned how to plant seeds, care for young animals, and maintain the small household efficiently. Each task she mastered reinforced her sense of competence and self-worth. The farmer observed with quiet satisfaction, understanding that true growth was happening, not just in her abilities but in her heart and mind. She was learning to trust, to care, and to believe in the goodness of others once more. As the seasons began to change, the girl noticed the subtle beauty of life around her. The first signs of spring appeared, tiny buds on trees, delicate flowers pushing through the soil, and the soft green of new grass. These small wonders mirrored her own growth, proof that patience, care, and kindness could bring about transformation. She began to see herself as part of a larger world, one filled with potential, beauty, and hope. One evening, as the sky turned deep purple and the first stars appeared, the girl and the farmer sat outside, watching the world grow quiet. "I never thought life could be like this," she said softly. "I thought I was alone forever, that no one could ever care." The farmer smiled gently. "Sometimes the world surprises us," he said. "Kindness has a way of finding those who need it most, even when we least expect it." She nodded, feeling the truth of his words settle into her heart. The changes she experienced were not just personal, they began to ripple outward, affecting the community as well. Villagers who had once been wary started to treat her with respect, noticing the transformation in her confidence and demeanor. They saw the result of compassion and patience, and many began to question their own assumptions about others. The girl's presence became a quiet lesson for everyone. Fear and prejudice could be overcome through understanding, and a single act of kindness could change lives in ways no one could predict. Through all of this, the farmer continued his quiet, steady guidance. He never forced her to move faster than she was ready, never demanded explanations, and never sought recognition for his efforts. His actions were simple, consistent, and genuine, a model of compassion in practice. The girl began to internalize these lessons, realizing that she too could show kindness, patience, and understanding to others. She had begun a journey of healing that extended beyond herself, touching everyone around her in subtle but meaningful ways. By the end of part 4, the girl had grown from a frightened, desperate wanderer into a young person capable of hope, trust, and resilience. Her bond with the farmer had become unbreakable, based not on obligation, but on mutual respect, care, and understanding. The small farmhouse had transformed into a place of growth, learning, and healing, not just for her, but for everyone who encountered it. What had shocked the community was no longer just the farmer's kindness, but the way it had inspired change, hope, and courage in someone who had once believed herself unworthy of life itself. The days slowly turned into weeks, and the girl had now settled into a rhythm she had never thought possible. Life on the farm had become more than just a routine. It had become a sanctuary, a place where she could breathe without fear, laugh without hesitation, and dream without limitation. Each morning, she rose with a sense of purpose, completing chores with confidence and care. She tended to the garden, fed the animals, and even helped prepare simple meals. Her hands, once trembling from fear and exhaustion, now moved with strength and precision. Every small task reinforced the belief that she was capable, that she mattered, and that her life had meaning. The farmer watched quietly, as he had done from the beginning, offering guidance only when necessary and allowing her the space to learn on her own. He had learned long ago that true growth could not be forced. Patience, understanding, and gentle encouragement were far more powerful than pressure or demands. He saw the transformation in her, not just in the way she carried herself, but in the way she thought and felt. Her once guarded eyes now sparkled with curiosity and hope. Her cautious words had been replaced by thoughtful observations, questions, and even laughter. The community, too, had begun to change in response to the girl's presence. Villagers who had once whispered doubts and fears now approached the farm with respect and even admiration. They saw the results of the farmer's kindness in her growth, in her newfound confidence, and in the gentle way she interacted with the animals, the plants, and those around her. Parents encouraged their children to visit, to learn from the girl's example, and to witness firsthand how patience and care could create real, lasting change. The girl, who had once felt isolated and invisible, was now becoming a symbol of resilience and hope. Despite these positive changes, the girl's past was never far from her mind. Memories of fear, loneliness, and danger occasionally surfaced, sometimes in dreams and sometimes in quiet moments during the day. But the difference now was that she had a safe place to confront those memories. The farmer never dismissed them or forced her to forget. Instead, he taught her to face them with courage and understanding. "The past is part of who we are," he said one afternoon as they repaired a section of the fence together. "But it doesn't have to control who we will become. Every day is a chance to grow stronger and kinder." His words, simple yet profound, reminded her that healing was a journey, not a single moment, and that she had the power to shape her future. One morning, as the first light of dawn spilled across the fields, the girl walked through the garden and noticed how vibrant and alive everything had become. Tiny seedlings had sprouted into strong, green plants. Flowers bloomed in a riot of colors, and the animals moved freely, healthy and content. She realized that this life, so full of care and attention, was not unlike her own journey. She had grown from a frightened, exhausted girl into someone capable of resilience, compassion, and hope. The realization brought a deep sense of gratitude and wonder. She began to understand that she had the power not only to survive, but also to thrive. The farmer, noticing her contemplative expression, smiled. "You've come a long way," he said quietly. "I knew you had it in you, but seeing it for myself, it's remarkable." The girl blushed slightly, unsure how to respond. Praise had always felt foreign, yet this acknowledgement filled her with quiet pride. It wasn't just about her abilities. It was about the recognition that her life mattered, that her efforts, her courage, and her growth were seen and valued. As the seasons changed, the girl began to form deeper connections with the villagers. She helped children learn how to plant seeds, tended to the elderly with small tasks, and shared her knowledge of the farm with anyone willing to listen. Each interaction reinforced her sense of belonging, and she started to understand the profound impact that kindness and guidance could have on others. People began to look at her not as someone in need, but as someone who could inspire and teach. It was a transformation she had never imagined possible when she first wandered onto the farm, trembling and pleading for help. One evening, as the sky turned deep shades of purple and gold, the girl and the farmer sat together on the porch, watching the sunset. The air was warm and filled with the scents of blooming flowers and freshly turned soil. Silence fell between them, but it was a comfortable silence, the kind that exists only between people who share trust and understanding. "I never imagined my life could be like this," the girl said softly, her voice tinged with awe. "I thought I would always be afraid, always alone." The farmer nodded gently. "Life has a way of surprising us," he replied. "And sometimes the greatest surprises come from simple acts of kindness. You've shown incredible strength, and it has carried you here." Tears welled up in her eyes, not from sadness, but from the overwhelming sense of gratitude and relief. She realized that her plea for help, spoken in desperation, had been met with a choice that no one else had offered. The farmer could have turned her away, judged her, or treated her with indifference, but he had chosen something different. He had chosen humanity, compassion, and understanding, and that single choice had changed the course of her life. As the months passed, the girl began to dream about the future. She imagined continuing to work on the farm, learning more about planting, animals, and the land. She thought about helping others who might be lost, afraid, or in need, just as she had been. The idea of giving back filled her with a sense of purpose she had never known. She realized that her own experiences, once a source of fear and despair, could now become a source of empathy and guidance for others. The farmer noticed these changes and felt a quiet satisfaction. His role in her transformation had never been about recognition or reward. It had been about doing what was right, showing consistent care, and allowing the girl to rediscover her own strength. He had witnessed her journey from fear to trust, from isolation to connection, and from despair to hope. And he understood that the true measure of success was not in what he had done, but in what she had become. One crisp morning, a small group of villagers visited the farm. They had come to see the girl and to meet the farmer who had changed her life. They were curious, hesitant, but open to understanding the story for themselves. The girl greeted them with quiet confidence, introducing herself and sharing her experiences in her own words. She spoke of fear, loneliness, and struggle, but also of growth, trust, and the impact of one person's kindness. The villagers listened, captivated by her story, and many felt inspired to reflect on their own actions and assumptions. By the time the sun began to set, the girl had realized that her life had taken a remarkable turn. What had started with fear, exhaustion, and desperation had blossomed into something beautiful: trust, resilience, and hope. She had discovered the profound truth that one act of compassion could change a life completely. And she understood that this change was not temporary. It had created a foundation upon which she could continue to grow, thrive, and contribute to the world around her. As night fell, the girl and the farmer sat quietly under the stars. The air was cool and the world felt peaceful. She turned to him and said, "I never thought anyone would care about me. I never thought I could feel safe or happy again." The farmer smiled gently. "It wasn't me who changed your life," he said softly. "It was your courage, your willingness to try, and your heart. I only helped you see what was already inside you." The girl nodded, feeling the truth in his words. She realized that she had discovered not only safety and kindness, but also her own inner strength. The girl's journey was now a testament to the power of compassion, patience, and understanding. She had been lost, frightened, and isolated, but through one man's choice to act with humanity, she had found hope, belonging, and purpose. Her life was no longer defined by fear, but by the possibilities that awaited her. And the people who witnessed her transformation were reminded that the world could be changed, one act of kindness at a time. In the quiet of the night, as the stars sparkled above, the girl finally felt a sense of peace she had never known. She understood that life could be beautiful, even after hardship, and that hope could exist even in the darkest times. She had learned that courage was not the absence of fear, but the decision to move forward despite it. And she had discovered that the simplest acts, listening, helping, and showing care, could create ripples that changed not just her life, but the lives of everyone around her. By the end of her journey, the girl was no longer defined by the fear and despair that had once consumed her. She had become a symbol of resilience, hope, and the extraordinary power of human kindness. And what shocked everyone, from the villagers who had doubted her to the children who had never seen such transformation, was that it had all begun with one simple choice: the farmer's decision to act with compassion when it mattered most. Her story became a quiet legend in the village, a reminder that even in a world that can seem harsh and unforgiving, one act of humanity has the power to change everything. And in that small farmhouse, under the soft glow of the stars, the girl slept peacefully for the first time in her life, knowing that she was safe, loved, and capable of a future full of hope.